I've been watching a series that ended just a couple of days ago, The Dream Life of Mr. Kim. The whole story revolves around something we all know, even if we don't always want to admit it: pride. The protagonist is a man who dedicated his entire life to proving that he could reach the top. Not out of love for his family, not out of a noble sense of purpose, but out of pride. And he was close to achieving it. He became the general manager of one of the biggest telecommunications companies in Korea. But that success came hand in hand with arrogance, obsession with appearances, and harsh expectations toward his only son. It also came from an implacable work ethic, from giving everything he had to a dream that, in the end, was built on the need for validation. What's striking is watching that same pride slowly shatter when the company, the one he gave his life to, discards him. First they exile him, then they ask him to downsize staff because one of the factories will be shut down. It's as if everything that once defined him collapses in a single moment. And there, in the middle of that chaos, his real transformation begins. For anyone who has worked in a big corporation, especially in an administrative role, it's almost impossible not to feel close to his story, to see how the company you gave your life to throws you away once you're no longer useful. Because over time you convince yourself that status, achievements, and recognition are a kind of insurance. But in reality, they're as fragile as time itself. And when they disappear, what remains is emptiness. An emptiness that reveals motivations we believed were pure, but were actually rooted in ego. There was a scene that truly moved me, unlike many others, when he cries in front of his boss, begging him not to exile him. He tells him he gave everything, that he missed his son's graduation, family gatherings, irreplaceable moments, because he devoted himself completely to the company. And still, it wasn't enough. That moment hit me hard because, even though our stories aren't the same, I understand that feeling of helplessness, of watching years of effort slip through your fingers. Before losing my corporate job, that stable 7 to 5 with an above-average salary, I also had a rigid idea of success, of what it meant to be the best, of what made me valuable in the eyes of the world. And when everything started to crumble, it was painful. But now I see it was also an act of mercy, because pride doesn't break gently. It breaks through blows, through loss, through things we can't control. It may sound harsh, but loss is a powerful teacher. Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. And sometimes what we treasure in our hearts isn't what should be there. Scripture says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." When the heart is filled with pride, you stop seeing clearly. You convince yourself you're indispensable, that nothing moves without you, that your achievements define who you are. But when all of that falls apart, when the title, the salary, and the routine disappear, what emerges is who you truly are. And even though it hurts, it also sets you free. This almost year outside the corporate world has allowed me to see parts of myself I never would have looked at if everything had stayed the same. I discovered insecurities I had covered with titles and responsibilities, and deep roots of pride growing without my awareness. And I think that's something the series shows too. Sometimes God can't work on certain areas of our character while we're still clinging to the places that make us feel important. Losing that job wasn't the end, even though it felt like it. It was a desert, yes, but also a safe space where God could speak to me without the noise of performance and pressure. And the more time passes, the more I understand it wasn't failure, it was pruning. Because when God prunes, it's not to destroy the branch, it's to help it bear fruit. And in the middle of that vulnerability, just like Mr. Kim, you discover that the truly valuable thing wasn't the title or the status or the approval of others, but the heart God wanted to restore.